Okay, this should be interesting. I haven't talked about my brother at all. So the control my mom has over my brother is unfucking real. Again, I didn't realize the amount of brainwashing she put that boy through. My brother nowadays acts like a complete extrovert. He's a completely different person than what he originally was, than that soft little boy he used to be. You know, that soft, innocent, soft-spoken, quiet, peaceful, loving, just very, very emotional and quiet boy. My mom turned him into an extremely extroverted, mind-controlled slave. He is so trauma controlled, it's unfucking real. He is still allowing his children to go over and visit with my mom, even when they don't like to, because they know she's an abusive fuck face. My brother, although I thought that I had squashed things with him and made things better years ago, has harbored animosity towards me. And I think this is all a survival mechanism, is what it appears to be. Because obviously he can't lean on me at all, so he still has my mom there. So, he's leaning on her. And in leaning on her, he had to take sides. So he is completely on board with her, with all her religious shit, with all her brainwashing and manipulations, with all her continued abuse against his kids, with everything. And he's just completely brainwashed. And the problem with this is that, again, this all comes back to people not healing and not taking care of their trauma and abuse and facing their demons and their shit. Because he has not done that, his kids suffer for it. His kids are suffering. He's having more children. He's bringing more slaves into this world. He thinks it's a fucking joke. It's absolutely disgusting. His wife's an outright narcissist because she has not solved her shit. She hasn't solved any of her trauma, and she's had a lot of trauma in her life. So these two trauma-based couples, they're together because of their trauma and living in their trauma and abuse, and instead of taking care of it, are passing it down to all these animals that they surround themselves with, all these children they surround themselves with. And it's disgusting. It makes me sick to my fucking stomach. My brother needs to man up and quit being a fucking piece of shit pussy, fucking perpetrating this abuse down onto his kids. And he needs to stand up to my mom. He needs to stand up to my uncle. He needs to stand up to these family members, and he needs to fucking take his stand and say, no, this shit isn't right. What you guys have done isn't right. What has happened and transpired throughout our history is not right. And he needs to fix himself. And until he does that, he is an abusive piece of shit. Period. It's that simple. And his wife is an abusive piece of shit. Period. And these abusive pieces of shit keep on having children and abusing their children, and it's disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I do not condone or approve any of it. In fact, I stand against it, and I think it's the nastiest fucking thing they could ever fucking do. And I hold them accountable for it. And regardless of the brainwashing my mom's done, they're both adults, and they need to stand up and face their fucking shit and clean up their act and clean up their trauma and clean up their abuse and clean up their lives. Period. But my mother, this is the power of the abuse, guys. My mom had control of me. She came in between my first marriage for years as I was an adult. Years after I'd already built a business making six figures all by myself. I mean, unbelievable. My mom still came in between. She came in between me at every fucking step of the way. She abused, took advantage of, and did every vile, evil, nasty thing she could to bring me down, make me depressed, make me feel unworthy, make me feel shame and guilt, make me feel like I didn't do enough, make me feel like I was going to hell, make me all of this. And now she is doing that. She's doing the same type of abuse, in order to keep control of these other kids. My sister, my younger sister, Hannah, as well. She's, it's disgusting. These people are so disgusting. None of them are handling any other trauma, any other abuse. They all act like they're little Christians, like they do good, like they're great little people. When they are riddled, they are so riddled with sicknesses and autoimmune disorders and allergies and all of this stuff, and it all comes from unhealed trauma and abuse, every single bit of it. And these people just wallow in their sickness, they wallow in this shit, and they pray to Jesus and they pray to God and they gossip and they do everything they can to avoid taking care of their shit and just shucking the blame and shucking the problems onto other people. And what they do is they just surround themselves with dopamine hits, constant dopamine hits, never ending dopamine hits. Constantly got to be eating, constantly got to be smoking, constantly got to be drinking, constantly got to be entertainment, constantly got to be turning on a screen, constantly got to be doing this while their children just suffer, while they treat their children with passive aggressive or just outright nasty, fucking evil, abusive shit. And it's disgusting. And I'm speaking out against all of it. And I'm talking against all of these cocksuckers. My fucking aunt, my piece of shit aunt, my narcissistic, fucking rich beyond you can imagine wealthy aunt. All of these fucking people are narcissistic abusers. My grandmother, my little sweet grandma, Grandma Christakis. Oh, she's such a sweetheart. She's just a little 4'10" woman. She's the matriarch of all of this abuse. It all starts with her. It all starts with my grandmother. And she has not stood up to any of it. She has not faced any of it. She's refused. She has sat her happy little ass, her little Buddhist fucking ass, in the lap of luxury her whole life and disregarded any trauma or abuse or neglect to her children. And then my uncle's in the whole fucking same boat. My uncle's a fucking mind-controlled slave by his sisters and his mom. That's all he is. He's just a useful fucking idiot. They've been using him his whole fucking life. And what did he do when I was working for him, working my dick off for him? He's sitting there threatening me. I couldn't even pick up on it. Because see, guys, I don't play these fucking games. If I got something to say, I say it right out front. And if I don't go, if anybody messes with my family, I'm going to fuck them up. And I don't do that and go, like passive aggressively, like you're not going to understand what I'm saying or hint. No, I'm going to tell you to your face. No, that motherfucker was passive aggressively threatening me and saying all kinds of evil shit to me. And I didn't even get it. I didn't get it until after I separated from him last year. I didn't understand what he was doing. And what it was the mind control that my mom and aunt had placed on him about how evil and abusive I was. And that's not who I am. Yeah, I threw my cousin in a closet. I'm not an abuser. I don't go around throwing people in closets. I don't beat up on women. But I've been lied about, and I've had those things in my life where I made a mistake, and all it's done is that became my story for these fuckers. That became my story. And instead of caring and being loving people and understanding and humans, they wrote me off and have done nothing but gossip and bring me down at any moment they can. Like I said, my family would rather attend my funeral and they'd be laughing and joyous over it than take any amount of any effort to try to make any of this trauma right or abuse right or even confront it. So, I hold nothing for any of them. They are disgusting abusers, every single one of them, until they heal, until they face their shit, until they admit their wrongdoing, until they admit their part in all this shit. They're disgusting, nasty abusers that continue to perpetrate the abuse and trauma onto everybody else because they are narcissistic. And why are they narcissistic? Because they are hurting. When you are hurting, you cannot show emotion towards other people. The only person you truly care about is yourself because you're still in survival mode. It's just the way the brain works. It's the way we operate. There's nothing they can do about it. And they all are refusing to heal. They all have their feet dug in their heads so far up their own asses They refuse. They absolutely refuse. And what that's doing is that's making mine, my son, my niece, my daughter, my other son, that's making all of our healing that much harder, because it makes you feel like you're crazy. It makes you feel like nobody is ever going to believe you. It makes you feel like your story doesn't matter. It makes you feel like you want to give up and just go back to live in their fantasy, so that way at least you're surrounded by other humans that you can pretend love you or whatever, because this is a very not lonely, because I don't have loneliness, but it's a very once you get rid of all the false relationships and the fake relationships that are actually abusive to you, you realize that you were never loved. You were accepted. You were an inconvenience that was dealt with because you were also fodder for gossip. You were also feeding the gossip machine. You were also constantly in the background, but you didn't know, feeding into their whole ideas and illusions of you. So, you, even though all these times I spent with these people thinking I was being loved, it wasn't that. It was entertainment for them. It was an entertaining thing. And that's sad. That's very sad. But at least, there's no more wasting of time. There's no more putting ourselves in position to be abused. There's no more of that. So, that is the freeing part of it. Just again, I hate calling it loneliness, because it's not. I don't feel lonely. I feel abandoned. Like what my brother and my sister accused me of abandoning them at a young age. I feel like I've been abandoned, by everybody my whole life. And it makes me sad, because I have kids here who are trying to heal, and I know if these adults that were responsible for their abuse and their trauma would admit and do what they needed to do, that these kids would be able to heal so quickly. But look at me, I'm a year and a half in, still healing, still facing this shit. And I know how difficult it is. And without, those authority figures that abused you admitting to it, and in fact, making things worse and making it seem like you're the crazy one, it just makes it that much harder. So yeah, it's a very sad situation. It's unnecessary. And it's hurting everybody. I want to be proud. I've always wanted to be proud of my family. I've always wanted to believe in them and, think that we all loved each other, but none of us knew what love is, because we were all so traumatized and abused. Our mother brought us up in an extremely toxic, trauma-filled environment where none of us knew what love is. We just knew that love was a word that we threw around when we weren't hating each other, So